This is War of the Suns, Chinese War of Resistance, 1937 to 1945. This is a rules video concerning economics. The Western Allies and the Japanese, their economies are pretty much fixed by historical events, because apart from the control of an oil field in Burma, I don't think there's anything that specifically affects those two powers that's actually on the board at the time. No, that's not strictly true. Japan can actually get opium income if they control any of these opium hexes, which there's two at the start, and there's others get generated by random events. Okay. Now the key to all this is supply centres. There are a series of Chinese cities that are designated supply centres. Now you can see them on the map by the fact they've got a, let me just find one here. No, that's a port, just ignore me. Here's one here. Nanning, it's just, actually that's not clearly defined as a supply centre. Anyway, doesn't matter. They're defined by the chart here and their hex location, and Komatang actually generate replacement points using this track here. So if it's assimilated, you get a certain value, number of RPs. If it's threatened, you get a certain number of RPs, and not threatened, you may get RPs. Now, threatened is basically if there are Japanese units in an adjacent province, you are partially threatened, and then you become fully threatened if the Japanese actually enter your particular area. This is really only for the cliques that are not actually part of the Komatang at the start. For example, this one, the Shantung, which is the Han clique, they are actually threatened because there are Japanese units inside Shantung province. Okay, so that determines what score you get there. You've got these ones here like Suzhou and Shanghai. They only have one box because they're actually, they start the game assimilated. You can't unassimilate. You've got other ones which are effectively in non-affiliated cliques. And depending on their status, sometimes you can get nothing, like Lanchao. You're in the current game, it's not assimilated or threatened. Okay, and then you get these other ones which are pro-Komatang cliques here, like Chengtu, and these can be either assimilated, which are not at the moment, they're pro-Komatang, they could be threatened or non-threatened. Okay. Another status you can have is they're actually Japanese controlled, so they're completely out of it. So if you look at these three northern cities here, the Japanese control them. Okay. They also generate RP from your port cities. Now, they can be non-strategic blockaded or strategic blockaded. So you get more from these ports. It's worth saying, you've got to control them, obviously, to generate anything. Well, I've already pointed that out partially, but the same applies to ports as well. Now, part of the game is the Japanese can actually enforce a strategic blockade, and that can cut the ports off from outside trading. All right, so that reduces their effectiveness. You get your opium and income. That's only for the fall turn. It is actually a fall turn now. So the Chinese have 2 opium hexes they control. So that will effectively give them 2 times 4, 8 RPs. Komatang, I won't cover that in the moment. That's CCP only. And also you can get foreign loans, which is KMT only. Now the foreign loans are governed by political sort of situation, what your relationship with the Western allies is, what your relationship with the communists, what your relationship is with the Nazis. So they can change on that basis, and that will give you your total RP after the end of it. Now it says after negotiation phase here, that's if you're doing the full political game, which I'm not. I'm using predetermined politics. Okay, now you can lose a lot of your RPs due to desertion and corruption. Now that depends on quite a few factors, but it's really driven by inflation, rampant inflation and hyperinflation. Now inflation as an economic concept is, as soon as China gets cut off from the rest of the world, you start getting inflation coming in, and that builds up slowly until it's wrecking your economy. So for China to maintain links with the outside world is absolutely vital to the war effort. Okay, so that's what you use to generate your RPs. Your DEPs, which is your domestic economic points, are dependent on your factories. Now, you have a certain number of factories at the start of the game which are controlled, well, they're all controlled by the Kuomintang, and they still are at this particular point in time. But I say all controlled by Kuomintang. Actually, I need to revise that slightly. I've done that slightly wrong. Yeah, you can only draw DEPs from the factories that the Kuomintang actually controls. A lot of these factories are in non-affiliated cliques. Okay, so I need to be careful about that. Your foreign economic points that are available, that depends entirely on unblockaded ports. The more, if you've got unblockaded ports that are also supply centres like Canton and Shanghai, you get the most, and then it goes down. So the more isolated you are, the less foreign stuff you can get. Okay. KMT also has the ability to get an oil field, but that's like a random event. Okay. Now, what I've done to mark all this is my resource centres, I've put these little discs down on them, so they're colour coded. Now, if you are in a pro KMT faction or clique, they're purple. Okay. If you are part of an assimilated KMT clique, you are blue, dark blue, and anything that's in a non-affiliated clique, like this one here, they've got green discs, and there's one other type of disc which is the red discs, which are resource centres controlled by the Japanese. Other things that are related to economics, these little black cubes represent where your factories are. Now your factories don't have to stay in the same place. The Chinese did the same sort of thing as the Russians did, is they actually dismantled a lot of their industry and moved it inland away from the Japanese, because it's, as I've already noted, that your factories are really important for generating your DEPs. If you want to know what the DEPs and FEPs and RPs are used for, there's a video that discusses all that in replacements and upgrading of units. Okay. The only other thing is I've marked the ports, the really important ports, where which are actually generating RPs lines with yellow discs. Alright. Is there anything else we need to discuss for economics? Only the relationship between... Oh no, they haven't done the CCP, have we? Now the CCP start the game with very little in terms of resources. They've got only potentially one RP, which is generated from a dice roll, which comes from the Comintern affiliation. You've got no factories, so you've got a dep of 0. Your FEP, FEP for CP is you can only get 1 for that if you actually control the Yumen oil field, which they don't at this particular point in time. That's another oil field that was found during the war. It's like a random event to get that. So basically the CCP have almost nothing at the start of the game. Economically, they're very, very minor power at this particular stage. I think that'll cover it for economics. Is there anything else? Oh yeah, there's a couple other economic things. During floods, certain provinces, the amount of RPs you can get from the province is reduced. So I'll say from the resource centre. So Hankow normally gives you 4 RPs, but if there's floods in the area, you only get 2 RPs. The other thing here, there's a chart called column down the side called IR, which is improved recruitment. The RP this KMT receives from each supply centre except Nanking is increased by 1 if the improved KMT recruitment random event has occurred in the game, which it hasn't at this particular point in time. The only other thing that's worth noting is you can actually convert resource points, RPs, into CPs. The CPs we've already covered in the command video. They are vital for activating your armies. Okay. But you can only actually do that at a specific time in the game, which is during the replacement and construction phase. Now, it's possible for the CP to actually get RPs from Japan or the KMT. That's interesting. You've got to remember that the communists are a separate faction. They are not actually. They're not part of the Chinese resistance as such. They act independently. So it's possible for both Japan and the nationalists to give them resource points, which makes sense because they've got the potential to generate units which could be hostile to either side. They could be hostile to the Japanese, they could be hostile to the KMT. So that's a tricky one, and it's very much up to the actual controlling player, which in my case I'm playing solo, to actually handle that.